Welcome to Retirement Ramblings. I'm Scott, and today is day 71 on my countdown to retirement. So today, I got back most of my lab results from Quest, and a few are still outstanding, but I am sure that my doctor is going to give me a stern talking to when I visit with him next week. So I'm really going to have to go back on a very strict version of the carnivore diet for at least 4 to 6 months to get my numbers back to where they need to be. And that's pretty hard for somebody that's a carboholic like me. Although I did once before, so I know I can do it if I set my mind to it. I just need to do it, for, which is easier said than done, but something that I'm going to have to definitely do. And then for anybody that happens to be looking for protein sales, and if you're in the Atlanta area or have access to these stores, just so that you know that they're on sale between today and October 28th. You can get 80% lean ground beef at Kroger for $4.99 a pound. You can get Purdue chicken drumsticks, the family pack at Aldi for 89 cents a pound, and you can get beef skirt steak at Lidl with the My Lidl app for $6.99 a pound. All three of those I thought were pretty good prices. And then today, the majority of my focus was spent on Medicare and what I need to do to get ready for that, and also to be able to help my wife analyze what her options are to transition from her Aetna plan that's being canceled for 2026 to a new plan, whether that's Medicare Advantage or that's original Medicare. So I met today with a Medicare specialist for an hour to discuss the various options. And I'm going to so I wrote up a whole summary of notes during that call, which I then sent to the Medicare specialist and said, here's my notes. Did I get this right? And I got back a response, so that's good. So I'm going to go over what I learned today with you, and hopefully you'll find it helpful as you go through your planning process for Medicare, be it in 2026 or in subsequent years. Assuming that's not that far in the future, where potentially something will have changed, but at least give you a framework of what you need to think about. So I'm going to look down a little bit to make sure that I get these notes correct, because there's no way I'm going to remember this off the top of my head. So first, what I ended up learning was that Medicare Plans G, High Deductible Plan G, and Plan N are the most popular Medicare plans. They typically receive the lowest cost increases on an annualized basis because there's so many companies, given that they're so popular, competing for the vast majority of people that want those plans, that it maintains the premiums at a lower level, and it maintains the increases for inflation at a lower level than potentially other plans. And then all three plans cover the $1,676 inpatient admission deductible that it's associated with Medicare Part A. That was one of the things I was concerned about, because every time you go in, if you don't have a plan that covers that, every time that you go into a hospital for an inpatient stay, you have to redo the deductible. It's not an annualized deductible, it's a per incident deductible. So I wanted to make sure that whatever plan I might choose would cover that, and all three of the plans that I'm looking at, which would be those three, cover that. And then you get to enroll in Medicare beginning 3 months prior to the month in which you turn 65. So let's assume that you turn 65 in February, on February 28th. You would still be able to get Medicare starting on February 1st of that year. And so you could back up from there 3 months. So, January, December, November. So you'd be able to, assuming that open enrollment was happening, you'd be able to, well, that's not true. You'd be able to start in November whether open enrollment was there or not. You'd go apply, and then 3 months later, you would have active Medicare starting in February. And then it's recommended that you go with a national carrier for Medicare versus a regional or local carrier. And the primary benefit out of doing that, especially if you can get them in where the premium is close, is that local or regional carriers, if you were to decide to sell your home or just to move to another region, another state, where that carrier may or may not actually have coverage in that state, and so you would then lose your ability to stay with that carrier. When you get a Medicare plan, it's supposed to be for life, and so once you get out of that situation where, let's say you moved, if that carrier didn't have a plan, and let's say that you were on, I'm just make up plan N, which is not a guaranteed plan. So once you were to move, you would only be able to get on plan G at that point in time through no fault of your own. So whereas if you went with a national carrier, I'm just going to make up something like Cigna or I don't know, Aetna or Humana or whoever that would be offering, a nationwide plan for Medicare, not Medicare Advantage, just Medicare, then anywhere you moved in the United States, it would be covered as long as that was a national plan. So something just to consider. And then one of the other things that I thought was interesting was, again, in looking at Plan G, high deductible Plan G or Plan N, one of the things that that the agent brought up was that there's what they call an innovative Plan G, which is this plan, which is by Physicians Mutual, and basically it's a Plan G that starts with a deductible, and the deductible decreases over 3 years to where by the third year you don't have a deductible, and you get full Plan G benefits, but your premium starts because you have a deductible in the first 3 years. It starts at a lower premium amount. In the example that they give, it's $55 a month less than a regular Plan G. And by the time you get to the third year, you get all the benefits of a full Plan G at a lower price point. So they said for someone that's considering going with a high deductible Plan G, that's an option that someone might want to consider, which I thought was interesting. And then if you have not taken Social Security early, so like someone like me, who I'm not going to take Social Security till I'm at least full retirement age, probably not until I'm 70, but if you were to have taken it at 62, 63, 64, you would automatically, on your 65th birthday, without you doing anything, become enrolled in Medicare. Now, clearly, you need to pick the plan you want for a Medicare supplement, but Medicare proper, you would automatically get enrolled and start having your Medicare premium taken out of your Social Security. If you don't apply for Social Security prior to turning 65, then when you do apply, then and you pick your plans or whatever, you're going to get billed on a quarterly basis unless you decide to sign up for what's called Medicare Easy Pay. And Medicare Easy Pay is a website that you can go to through the Medicare.gov website. So it's a sub website that allows you to set up a direct debit from either a savings or a checking account that will be debited on the 20th of the month or one day after, depending on what, on the next business day, if that day is a holiday or something. But basically, it'll debit it automatically on a monthly basis, so you don't have to keep all the way until you take Social Security, and then it'll automatically transition over to taking it out of your Social Security payment. But if you don't do that, basically you'll have a quarterly bill that shows up, and you'll have to pay the 3 months in advance for the coverage. So I thought that was interesting. And by the way, I'll leave the notes of what I'm telling you as well as the URL for this in the description down below. And then for a full first-time enrollee like me, Plan N is the preferred plan because it's a lower cost than the Plan G. If you do the financial analysis, it will take a substantial number of copays to come even close to the spread between the premium of a Plan G and the lower premium of a Plan N. And that even though it indicates on a Plan N that you might be responsible for Medicare excess fees that would be charged by a doctor or a hospital. Basically, according to the person I spoke with, in their 11 years of doing this and helping their clients, not a single client has ever been charged an excess fee, because basically when doctors sign up to accept Medicare, they're saying, I'm going to accept this fee. So they're like, when would you ever then be able to charge an excess fee and say, I'm going to accept this fee, but not really. I'm going to charge you an extra 15%. They're like, the reason that the language still exists, even though people don't charge it anymore, is because for Medicare to change the language requires them to come up with a new plan letter, and they don't want to do that. So even though technically a doctor or hospital could charge you an excess fee, it doesn't actually happen in real life. They just can't modify it without changing the letter. So I thought that was interesting. And then for high deductible Plan G, they don't generally recommend it for one of really two big reasons. One, the deductible is satisfied only through the payment of the 20% variance above what Medicare pays, plus any inpatient deductible fees that you would have to pay prior to hitting the deductible. So the representative indicated that it's almost, unless you're super sick, it's almost impossible to ever satisfy the deductible. So you're basically paying a premium monthly for coverage that doesn't provide you with any benefit. And people, after they do it for a couple of years and they realize that, really hate it. And then, it becomes more of a challenge to change. But and then the second major point is that because you have to satisfy the deductible before they pay $1, and Medicare is going to be sending you explanation of benefit letters, and they're going to say, I paid this, here's the spread. You have to manually keep track of all the EOBs and where you stand relative to the deductible, and when you actually have to then submit to the Medigap plan that they now need to start paying above and beyond what you've already paid. So it's really complicated and challenging when you first start, and then as people age, it gets even more confusing and challenging. So the representatives generally don't recommend someone going on it. And then if you are eligible to change back from a Medicare Advantage supplement, like my wife, because of her Aetna cancellation, back to a full Medicare plan, then if the first day that you had enrollment opportunity for Medicare was before January 1st, 2020, the only plan you can change back to is Plan F that gives you guaranteed enrollment. If your first day of enrollment in Medicare was January 1st, 2020 or later, your only option is Plan G. So you're going to be on the most expensive plan and it's guaranteed, and you can swap back to that. So in my wife's case, that's her only option. And then the Medigap plans use one of three different pricing models. They use attained age, which according to this representative is almost never used, issue age, where the premium is based on your age at the time of enrollment. So the younger you are when you start on that, the lower your premium will be. And then community pricing, which is based on the socioeconomic level of the community in which you live in. So if you happen to live in a wealthier area, your premium by default is going to start at a higher rate. And then all plans have an adjustment annually on your anniversary date of an inflation adjustment, but it's not inflation tied to the CPI, but rather inflation that's tied more to what the plan itself from an expense ratio has kind of worked out. So, if inflation was 3%, you might get away with only 5%. If the CPI was 6%, maybe it would cost you 9%. So it's going to be higher than the CPI number, but it's going to be some ratio, presumably, to that. And then starting in 2026, this I found interesting, Medicare agents are not going to be able to assist enrollees in selecting or updating their drug plans. So apparently in 2025, there's approximately 30 drug plans that are part of, that provide Medicare benefits. In 2026, that's going to drop down to approximately 12. And very few of those drug plans are going to have a $0 premium. And even the ones that do have $0 premiums, and they specifically called out Humana Basic and WellCare Classic, they tend to, on all those plans, they have a $615 drug deductible. So those two plans in this example, until you pay $615 for your prescriptions, you don't get $1 of assistance. But there are other plans that where you pay a nominal fee for your premium, but they cover tier 1 and tier 2 drugs under a copay model that doesn't require you to satisfy the deductible first. And the copay items go towards the deductible. So you're actually getting benefit for your premium starting day one. So just something to consider. And then the other thing that's interesting on the drug side is the master formulary for Medicare is updated only once a year. And then drug companies are required to select 2 drugs per condition from the master formulary to cover for their plans. So not every drug is covered by every drug plan. And so it's really important that when you're selecting your drug plan that you go into Medicare, you put in all of your doctors, all of your drugs that you're currently on, and then see on the list, are they covering all your drugs? Are they only covering a portion of the drugs? And if you happen to have a brand name drug, you need to put in the name of the generic if one exists and compare both. When you're looking at it, compare both of them to see if the generic might be covered or the brand might be covered, but not both. And as an example, my wife uses Restasis for dry eyes. Okay, well, the brand Restasis on her current plan is covered. The generic, which is called cyclosporin, even though it's a generic, it's not covered. So when the doctor submitted that he wanted her to get Restasis, she went to go pick it up. By default, our pharmacy always tries to use generics instead of the brand name. So I went to go pick it up, and it was a ridiculous amount of money, hundreds of dollars for the generic. And I said, that doesn't make any sense. I didn't pay that one for the brand. And they're like, well, the doctor said we could use a generic. And I said, well, how much is it for the brand? And to go for the brand, I don't remember the exact number, but let's say it was $75 for the brand and $500 for the generic. So clearly I made him go and give me the brand that was covered on the formulary for this particular plan that my wife has. So it's really important to put both of those in there if you know that they exist, so that when you're comparing one drug plan against another, that you can find out what's actually covered one versus another. And then likewise, should your doctor put you on a new drug for the year, you might have to go to your doctor based on your plan and say, for this particular condition, these are the only 2 drugs that are covered. So he or she might want you to be on some other drug, but he's not going to have that choice if you want to get it covered by your plan. Otherwise, it's going to be completely out of pocket for you. So just something to consider. Anyway, that's what I learned today with regard to Medicare. Hopefully it was clear. And again, I'm clearly not a Medicare specialist. Everything I'm telling you, I was told to me by someone who is a Medicare specialist, but that doesn't mean it's correct for your area of the country or what have you. So take that with a grain of salt. talk to your own specialist before making any decisions. And then, anyway, after I got off with that and I typed everything up and what have you, ended up taking my wife out to dinner at Jim and Nick's barbecue. And so I had fried chicken there and she had uh, pulled pork along with collards and probably the worst coleslaw either one of us had ever had. So, not recommending coleslaw should you have a Jim and Nick's area in your area. The baked beans are good. The collards are good. The collards greens are good. So anyway, that is my update for today. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section down below or drop me an email at myretirementramblings@gmail.com. Otherwise, I hope you have a great evening, and until tomorrow, take care.